So, Microsoft just quietly announced they're ripping trust away from thousands of perfectly working hardware drivers this month. And if your kit's not on their approved list, tough shit, it's dead to Windows. Today I'm going to show you exactly how to get off that sinking ship, start gaming on Linux, and keep every piece of hardware you own alive. No jargon, no gatekeeping, no bollocks. If you manage to install Windows, you can do this. Alright, you lot. So here's what's happening, and barely anyone's talking about it. Last week, Register reported that Microsoft is removing trust for kernel drivers that haven't been through their Windows hardware compatibility program. Starting with April 2026 update, any driver that was signed under their old cross-signed root program, which is basically everything from early 2000s onwards that want recertified, gets demoted. It's no longer trusted and gets locked out of your kernel. Now they're rolling it out in what they call an evaluation mode first, which sounds all nice and gentle, but make no mistake, this is direction of travel. Microsoft themselves said that eventually any code that hasn't passed WHCP certification gets barred from kernel access entirely. And it affects Windows 11, 24H2, 25H2, 26H1 and Windows Server 2025. But what does that actually mean if you're sat at home with a PC that works perfectly fine? It means that printer you bought 5 years ago from a company that got swallowed up in a merger? Nobody's recertifying that. It's dead. That sound card from a manufacturer who went bust in 2022. E-waste. That niche capture card or audio interface that works perfectly. Hardware's fine. Does its job every single day. If Mecha can't be asked to go through WHCP certification again, or more likely don't even exist anymore, your hardware becomes a paperweight. And all cost Microsoft decided it's not allowed to talk to Windows anymore. And here's where it gets really infuriating. Microsoft is tightening kernel access for security, which is fair enough on surface. But at the same time, game publishers are demanding kernel-level access for anti-cheat software that literally disables Windows 11's own kernel security features to function. Riot's Vanguard runs at ring 0 on your machine before you even boot a game. Easy anti-cheat on Windows runs in kernel space. Microsoft's going, we need to lock down kernel access for safety, while simultaneously letting game companies ram nasty little rootkits into the same kernel. Pick a fucking lane, lads! But there's a saving grace. On Linux, drivers are built into kernel itself. They're open source and community maintained, which means nobody needs a corporate permission slip from Microsoft to let your own hardware function on your own machine. That 10-year-old printer that still prints perfectly probably works on Linux because someone wrote an open source driver and it's been in kernel for years. That orphan sound card? Same story. Linux don't care if a company went bust. Code's already there, maintained by community, and it's not going anywhere. So, while Microsoft's actively shrinking what hardware is allowed to work on Windows, Linux is doing exact opposite. So I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know to make that jump. No prior knowledge required. But before I go on, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. I'm not going to pretend Linux runs everything flawlessly. It don't. And I'd rather you heard that now than find out hard way after wiping your drive. If you've got an AMD graphics card, you're golden. AMD contributes their driver code directly to an open source project called Mesa, which is baked right into Linux kernel. You install your distro, your GPU works. No driver downloads, no setup wizard, no bollocks. Plug and play. AMD cards also play nicer with newer display tech like Wayland, which matters for things like mixed refresh rate monitors and proper multi-screen setups. Nvidia's where it gets a bit dodgy though. Nvidia refuses to open source the driver stack, so you're relying on proprietary closed source drivers. Now they work, and some distros like Pop! OS and CachyOS ship with dedicated Nvidia installers that handle it for you, but underneath you can still hit issues. Wayland compositing problems, screen flickering, suspend and wake failures, micro stuttering. It's not a deal breaker. Millions of people game on Nvidia on Linux every day, but it's not as smooth as AMD. Just being honest here. so keep that in mind. Wi-Fi is another one that catches people. Intel Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are golden. Firmware's built right into kernel. Works straight out at box. Zero faff. Broadcom and Realtek can be an absolute nightmare. Some distros won't even detect your wireless card out at box because manufacturers couldn't be asked writing open source drivers. You might need to plug in an Ethernet cable or tether your phone just to download firmware your Wi-Fi needs to function. Funny enough, my own motherboard's got Realtek Wi-Fi on it, and I genuinely have no idea if it works on Linux because I've been hardwired since day one. And honestly, that's my first bit of advice regardless of what operating system you're running. Get yourself on Ethernet cable and stop pissing about with wireless. You're gaming, not sat in Starbucks. Wired has lower latency, less packet loss, not much chance of dropout. Half of people moaning about Wi-Fi issues on Linux forums probably shouldn't be gaming on Wi-Fi in first place. Gaming peripherals are a mixed bag. Main ones like Razer, Corsair and Logitech, none of them make official Linux software. So you're relying on community build tools like OpenRazer, Solar and Piper to control your RGB and macro keys. Now they work well, but they might not support whatever come out last Tuesday. I'm running a Razer Black Shark V3 headset, wireless with Bluetooth dongle, and it's working, even with separate chat and game audio, but it's just left and right. There's no surround sound. Xbox controllers work wired over USB, but if you're using a wireless dongle, you need to install community drivers manually. PlayStation controllers, on the other hand, both DualSense and DualShock 4 work natively out at box. Flawless. Sony actually gave a shit. But here's what matters. Difference between Windows dropping hardware support and Linux not yet having it is intent. Microsoft's actively choosing to cut off working hardware through policy decision. Linux communities are actively choosing to add support for hardware that manufacturers couldn't be asked to write drivers for in the first place. One's moving backwards, others moving forwards. OpenRazer exists because Razer won't write a Linux app. X1 exists because Microsoft won't properly support their own wireless dongle on competing OS. These are volunteers reverse engineering proprietary hardware in their spare time. And they're winning. Slowly, messily, but winning. So here's where most Linux guides lose people, because they go straight from Linux is great to now wipe your hard drive and install this. Fuck that. You won't buy a car without test driving it. You're not wiping your PC without trying this first. Every major Linux distro lets you run it live off a USB stick. That means you download an ISO file, which is basically a disk image, flash it onto a USB stick using a free tool called Rufus, Ventoy or Berliner Etcher, and then boot your PC from that stick. Your hard drive don't get touched. No changes. You're running a full Linux desktop completely off that USB. And when you're done, you reboot, load back into Windows like no happened. While you're in that live environment, test everything. Does your Wi-Fi connect? Does your Bluetooth pick up your headset? Do your monitors display properly? Can you open Steam? Have a poke around settings. Move some windows. Open a browser. Get a feel for it. If something don't work, it's not a disaster. It's information. Better to find out now than after you've committed. And here's a trick most guys don't tell you. Use Ventoy for your USB stick because it lets you chuck multiple ISO files into one USB drive and pick which one to boot at startup. So you can load up Linux Mint, Pop OS, Zorin, Bazzite, whatever. All on the same stick and test drive 3 or 4 distros in a single afternoon without reflashing out. That's your free trial. Zero risk, zero commitment. Once you've found one you like, then you dual boot. That means installing Linux alongside Windows on the same machine so you can pick which one to load every time you turn your PC on. Windows stays exactly where it is. All your files are still there. And if you decide Linux isn't for you, just boot back into Windows. That's your safety net. Only wipe Windows completely once you've moved all your files across, you're comfortable, and you're confident you can do everything you need. And please, for the love of God, back your stuff up first. External drive, cloud storage, whatever you prefer. Don't be a twonk and erase all your data, like I did. Yeah, it happens to the best of us. I lost all 6 terabyte of data while I was messing with a distro on my gaming rig, including all my X-Defiant recordings. But hey, it's gone and I'm not bothered. Files on that drive needed a clean out anyway. Job's done. Now there's hundreds of Linux distros out there, I'm not going to bore you with all of them. I'm going to tell you which ones to actually look at based on your situation. Because that's all that matters. If you want something that looks and feels like Windows and just works with minimal fuss, Linux Mint with Cinnamon Desktop. It's boring, it's reliable, and that's exactly why it's right answer for a beginner. Bottom taskbar, start menu, system tray. It's basically Windows 10 with less bullshit. Updates rarely break out because it's built on a long-term support base that prioritises stability. Steam installs from Software Manager. If you've got an NVIDIA card, there's a graphical driver manager that handles proprietary drivers without you touching a terminal. Only downside is it runs slightly older packages, so brand new hardware might need a bit of patience for support to land. If you've got an NVIDIA GPU and want least amount of faff possible, Pop OS. System 76 makes a dedicated NVIDIA ISO that boots straight into fully working desktop with drivers already sorted. No setup, no terminal, it just works. Now Pop OS fairly recently shipped their new Cosmic desktop environment, which is built from scratch in Rust, completely separate from GNOME. That dropped back in December 2025 with the 2404 LTS release. It's clean, it's fast, but it looks different to Windows, so there's a slight learning curve. Handles Steam and Proton brilliantly. And if you're on a laptop with hybrid graphics, it's got built-in GPU switching so you can right-click on app and launch it on your dedicated card. If you want a console-like gaming box for your living room or just want something that's virtually impossible to break, Bazite. It's an immutable system, meaning core files are read-only. Updates happen in background as complete images, and you basically can't accidentally destroy it. GPU drivers come baked in, zero config. But be warned, it's not a traditional desktop. You install apps through Flatpaks and containers, not normal package managers. Think of it more like a dedicated gaming appliance than a Windows replacement. If you're a bit braver and want cutting-edge performance with latest everything, CachyOS or EndeavourOS, both Arch-based. Rolling updates means you always have newest kernel and drivers. CachyOS goes mental with performance tuning, custom kernel, custom CPU schedulers. It squeezes every frame it can out of your hardware. I'm running CachyOS on my gaming rig with KDE Plasma, and it's been brilliant. Just installed Jedi Fallen Order through an EA app workaround via Heroic Launcher. Not difficult, runs lovely. EndeavourOS is a cleaner, less opinionated Arch experience with a fantastic community. Both need a bit more willingness to learn, but you get rewarded for it. And a few quick honourable mentions. Zorin OS looks gorgeous and has a layout that properly mimics Windows 11 in its Pro version. But that's $47.99, and development team is literally 2 people, so major updates come slow. Nabara's brilliant for Fedora fans who want gaming sorted out at box. Ships with Steam and Proton GE pre-installed, but it's essentially maintained by one bloke, so treat it accordingly. And Ubuntu? Look, I need to warn you. Canonical's been pushing the Snap package system hard, and Snap version of Steam is a known headache. Input lag, permission issues, can't access games on secondary drives. If you go Ubuntu, make sure you install Steam as a native deb package, not through Snap Store. Right, so this is the bit everyone actually cares about. How do you play your games? Linux can't run Windows executables natively. Different operating system, different architecture. But Valve, together with Codeweavers, built something called Proton, and it's genuinely one of the most impressive pieces of software engineering in gaming. Proton sits inside Steam and acts as a real-time translator. When you click play on a Windows game, Proton intercepts all those Windows instructions and translates them on fly into something Linux understands. It's not emulation, there's no virtual machine running, it's direct translation. Specifically, a component called DXVK translates DirectX 9, 10, and 11 calls into Vulkan, and VKD3D handles DirectX 12 to Vulkan. You don't need to know any of that to use it. You just click play, Steam handles everything behind the scenes. But there's one critical step that catches every beginner. When you first install Steam on Linux, go into Settings, then Compatibility, and toggle on Enable Steam Play for all other titles. Pick latest stable Proton version from drop-down. Without doing this, Steam will only show you native Linux games, which is a tiny fraction of your library. Once you flip that switch, your entire Windows library unlocks. Now, not every game runs perfectly on one version of Proton. There are 3 versions you need to know about. Stable Proton is default. Officially tested by Valve, works for most stuff. Personally, I use Proton Experimental, which is a constantly updating branch at latest fixes for brand new releases. So if you've got a new game that's just come out and ain't working on stable, maybe try Experimental. And then there's Proton GE, which is a community maintained version by a developer called Glorious Eggroll. It includes proprietary media codecs and bleeding edge patches that Valve can't legally ship. If a game's got pre-rendered video cutscenes that show up as garbled nonsense or test patterns, Proton GE usually fixes it. To manage all these versions without touching a terminal, grab a free app called Proton Up Qt. It lets you download and install different versions of Proton with a couple of clicks. Now, before you buy or install Alt, check ProtonDB. It's a community source database where people report how well games run on Linux. Games are rated from balked, which means completely broken, all the way up to platinum, which means runs flawlessly without any tweaks. It tells you exactly what Proton version to use, what launch options to set, and what issues to expect on specific hardware. Steam's own deck verified ratings are a decent baseline, but ProtonDB gives you real-world detail. Bookmark it. And just a quick side note, fully check game on ProtonDB by clicking into it. Like Apex Legends shows as silver, but when you click in, you'll see community all reporting it's actually balked. So don't take it at face value. Always check actual feedback before trying to install something. Another one to check is in your Steam library. Alt left at top of your games list, right next to the drop-down menu, you'll see a little tux icon. Clicking on that will show you only games that run on Linux. It's not perfect, because latest Call of Duty still shows up, but they're working on it. But here's something that will shock a few Windows diehards. In a lot of cases, games actually run better on Linux. Because DXVK translates DirectX to Vulkan so efficiently, older games that were badly optimised for DirectX 11 on Windows sometimes get smoother frame pacing, less stutter, and higher average frame rates through Proton. And Linux itself chews through far less RAM and background bollocks. No telemetry phoning home, no Copilot, no OneDrive, no Cortana remnants, no Force Defender scans mid-game. You gain your game more system resources by default. Now here's honest bad news. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because you deserve to know this before you make any decisions. Some multiplayer games are blocked on Linux because of kernel-level anti-cheat software. Both Easy Anti-Cheat and BattleEye have built Linux-compatible modules. They can work through Proton. But, and this is a massive but, developers have to opt in. It's not automatic. Epic built Linux support into Easy Anti-Cheat. BattleEye built a Proton bridge. Tools are there, ready to go, but if a game developer decides they can't be arsed flipping that switch, their game stays broken on Linux. Deliberately. Gaming on Linux tracks 208 games with some form of anti-cheat right now. Out of those, 127 are working on Linux, 78 are broken, 3 are SteamOS only. That's roughly 61% working, which is actually decent, and it's improving steadily. Games like War Thunder, DayZ, Halo Master Chief Collection, Ark Survival Evolved, Smite, all working fine. Full online matchmaking, no issues. But then there's a list of big names that are deliberately blocked. Fortnite, Valorant, Rainbow Six Siege, Destiny 2, PUBG, and Apex Legends is a special case because EA didn't just neglect Linux support, they actively killed it. Back in October 2024, EA put out an official statement saying they'd identified Linux as a path for cheating exploits and blocked access entirely, Steam Deck included. If you want to play Apex on a deck now, you'd have to install Windows on it. That's EA's idea of a solution. So if your entire gaming life revolves around one of those blocked titles, if all you play is Fortnite or Valorant or Destiny, Linux ain't gonna fully replace Windows for you right now. I'm not gonna pretend otherwise. But for everything else, and I mean thousands upon thousands of games, you're laughing. And even for block stuff, there's a workaround. Cloud gaming. Xbox Cloud Gaming comes with Game Pass Ultimate and runs perfectly in the browser on Linux. GeForce Now actually has a Linux app. You're not running games locally, you're streaming it from a server. So anti-cheat don't care what operating system you're on. You need a solid internet connection, obviously, but it works. It's not perfect, but it's a bridge until publishers pull their heads out their asses. But Steam ain't the only place you've got games through, is it? GOG, Epic, Amazon, you've probably got libraries scattered everywhere. Good news is, none of that's dead on Linux. Heroic's Games Launcher is what you want. It's a free open source app that handles Epic Game Store, GOG and Amazon games all in one interface. Manages Proton versions per game, handles cloud saves, deals with Epic's authentication, and it just works. If you've got a big Epic or GOG library, Heroic's your best mate. For now. For all weirder, Battle.net, Ubisoft Connect, EA app, Lutris is your tool. It uses community-written scripts that automate all fiddly setup, dependencies, and wine configurations needed to get those launchers running. It's more hands-on than Heroic, but it covers virtually everything. For GOG, though, they are working on a native Linux app, so keep an eye out for that. I know I will be. Now here's some stuff that nobody tells beginners, and it causes absolute chaos every single time. First one, NTFS fast startup trap. If your Steam library is on a second hard drive formatted as NTFS, which is Windows file system, and your previous Windows install had fast startup enabled, which it does by default, Windows puts that drive into hibernation state instead of properly shutting it down. When Linux tries to read that drive, it detects hibernation lock and mounts it as a read-only to prevent data corruption. That results in Steam seeing your drive, but it can't launch, update, or install a single game. You're sat there baffled, wondering what's gone wrong. Fix is simple. Boot back into Windows, disable fast startup in power settings, shut down properly, then boot Linux. Or even better, reformat gaming drives to ext4 or BTRFS, and ditch NTFS entirely, cause NTFS on Linux has performance overhead you don't want. But only do that if you're committing to Linux. Second, broken prefix fix. Sometimes a game that were working fine just stops launching after an update. Beginners assume game's corrupted and re-download 100 gig of data. Don't. What's actually happened is Proton's wine prefix for that specific game got corrupted. Every game gets its own little simulated Windows folder. You find that game's Steam ID, go to your hidden compa data folder, delete folder matching that ID, next time you launch, Steam rebuilds a fresh prefix in seconds. Zero downloading, fixed. And lastly, this is important. When you install Steam, install it natively. Not as a Flatpak, not as a snap, native package. Flatpaks and snaps are sandboxed, meaning they're locked inside their own little container and can't access stuff outside it. Sounds great for security, terrible for gaming. Sandbox Steam can't read games on secondary drives. Can't use performance tools like Mangowood for your FPS overlay. Can't use game mode, which automatically optimizes your system when a game launches. Install it native, and you avoid all that permissions bollocks. I tell you what, I wish there were videos like this when I first started on Linux. There were nobody to sit me down and say, here's what works, here's what don't, here's how to test it without risking out. So shout out to Blazer Rocket 1734 in comments who said, I want to make a fresh start on Linux and play my games on Steam, but I know naught about Linux or any compatibility issues I need to account for. I need to figure out where to start. Mate, you start here. 2 million people downloaded Zorin alone in under 3 months. Most of them coming straight from Windows. This ain't some niche hobby anymore. People are leaving in droves and for bloody good reason. Microsoft's making it harder to use your own hardware on your own machine, while Linux communities are making it easier every single day. Choice is yours, but at least now you've got some basic information to make it properly. And if you like this video, YouTube says you'll like this and next. So go check that out, and I'll see you there, you magnificent.